Warning, this video will spoil most of the TV series Manifest. You have been warned. That said, enjoy. Welcome to the very first installment of a new video series I'm doing on this channel, Understanding Evil. I've been meaning to do retrospective type content on this channel for some time now, and Understanding Evil is going to be one of many forms of it. I already have a few ideas of who and what I want to cover for this series, so there won't be any shortage of content when it comes to this stuff. Although there are a few more channels on this platform who do cover this kind of stuff, I'll put my own creative spin on it that will make it worth watching. In this particular installment, the introduction will probably be a little bit longer just because it's the first one, so keep that in mind. And with all that out of the way, let's go. So the way I'm going to approach this is similar to a few YouTubers who I follow. The first is the Vile Eye, who is obviously an inspiration for this series. The second one is a music YouTuber by the name of Todd in the Shadows. Now what Todd does when he analyzes one-hit wonders is he splits his presentations into sections. The Vile Eye doesn't really do this for his presentations. Sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't, but I always will during mine. Whenever Todd reviews or analyzes stuff on his channel, he usually plays a part of the song that he's reviewing for a few seconds on his piano before going into his presentations, which I think is pretty cool. So whenever I can, I'll do something similar and copy a key monologue of the subject if I'm able to do so. I'd like to think I'm a decent actor, and I kind of want to do this for fun. So here's how this is going to go. First, I'll provide whatever background information I think is necessary to the character when it comes to understanding them, go over where they appear in the show / movie / game, their motives, their role, stuff like that. Maybe I'll talk about how they develop if I think it's necessary, or drop any other details if I think it's pertinent, but most of the time this will just be a summary of how the subject affects the overall arc of the show or whatever in question. Yes, this will spoil a lot of the plot of whatever I'm going to talk about, but that warning will be displayed at the beginning of the video, and it's pretty obvious, I'd say. The second part will go over what exactly made them evil or why they're evil in the first place. This part also might contain my personal opinions of the subject, whether their arc is executed properly, whether there can be any sympathy for them or not, all that stuff. I'll talk about what we can learn from the subject in the next section. I think it's important to do this because I believe that some of the biggest lessons that can be learned from the story arcs of villains, especially if they understand the error of their ways. After that, I'll compare the topic or subject to any other characters or entities that I've encountered. This will probably be the shortest section because most of these will be brief mentions. But if there is something interesting that comes out of this, I'll definitely take the time to explore it. Final section is where I borrow a bit from Todd in the Shadows, as well as a smattering of wrestling YouTubers who do fantasy booking, namely Parts Fun Known, where Adam does rebooks stuff. So whenever Todd analyzes one-hit wonders on his channel, he determines if the artist behind the one-hit wonder deserved any better. I will also do something similar. If I believe that the subject can be written better or given a redemption arc that not only retains the qualities of whoever I'm talking about, but also improves the overall story of everything in question, I'll go there. I'll probably have to make a different video in case I have to rewrite any arcs and details, and guess what? I'm going to do that for this because boy is there stuff I'd like to rewrite when it comes to Angelina from Manifest. Faux show. Truth be told, I've been meaning to do something like this for a very long time, ever since I became a fan of the Vile Eye, as well as Todd in the Shadows. And that was about 5 years ago. So I definitely have a backlog of villains that I want to cover in the future. I'll likely use screenshots instead of full motion scenes from whatever I've decided to cover. They'll make things a little bit easier. There'll be less of a chance for this video to be pulled, since using full motion footage may not be the best idea considering how super small my channel is. Although I may throw in some full motion footage in the future, we will see. For this particular retrospective, I will not be using full motion footage. With all that out of the way, Angelina Meyer is a passenger on Flight 828, which, upon returning from Jamaica, sends all of its passengers 5.5 years into the future. In her particular case, Angelina does not come back to a warm welcome by her folks. We see that when we're introduced to her at the beginning of Season 3, as she is locked in the basement of one of her parents' homes in Costa Rica for what seems like a few months. Her parents do this because, like nearly everyone else on Flight 828, Angelina receives telepathic visions of something that either needs to be figured out, a memory, or warning, usually a combination of the three. The show refers to these as callings, and these callings are what convinces Angelina's parents that she is a completely different person from who she was before the flight and might be connected to the end of the world. Angelina is eventually rescued by another passenger, Michaela, and her husband, Zeke. After settling with the Stone family, Angelina, along with Olive, set out to solve the calling she received, which entails a figure that looks like a combination of the Grim Reaper and an archangel following her, only to collapse into shattered stained glass after catching up to her. This calling seemed to have been solved when Angelina and Olive dig up a time capsule at the school that Angelina went to, which leads them to a place that Angelina enjoyed going to in her younger years. This leads Michaela to catch 3 criminals who not only ran a meth lab, but who were also caught kidnapping Cal months before. The leader of the 3, Jace, was responsible for not only running the meth labs, but also orchestrating the kidnapping. His younger brother, Pete, was in the same picture that the younger Angelina was in. This causes Angelina and Pete to establish a romantic relationship of sorts. Pete decides that he wants to walk away from his former life of crime and drugs, with Angelina supporting him, referring to her as his guardian angel. Things seem to be going good until the relationship reaches a tragic end when Pete, Jace, and Corey are caught up in an eerie black shadow, which was possibly connected to the callings that the 828 passengers have, taking the lives of all 3 individuals. This sends Angelina on a desperate quest to pretty much find someone who can save her from her own despair and self-hatred, which, let's be honest, was likely there from jump. You can see this when she attempts to burn the picture of herself as a kid after losing Pete. Telling Olive that the only thing she does is hurt others, Angelina plans to leave. But before she does, she gets a chance to hold Eden, who, to Olive and Angelina's surprise, is incredibly happy to be in Angelina's arms. This, combined with a moment where Angelina believes that Eden saves her from having a ceiling fan fall on her, convinces Angelina that she needs to be around Eden more than anyone. The seeds of this are planted when Angelina gets advice from another 828 passenger, Adrian, about finding her guardian angel. After hearing this, Angelina accompanies Cal to Eureka, which he gets a calling to infiltrate. While Cal is there, Angelina then heads to the home of the Stones, where she either mortally injures or kills Grace, depending on which theory about this event you want to believe. Either way, this moment concludes when Angelina kidnaps Eden, closing out Season 3. We get to see the real bad side of Angelina during Season 4. Bouncing around from location to location while taking care of Eden, she spreads a narrative that Ben was abusive towards Eden, so Angelina had no choice but to kidnap her, or something like that. Eventually, the Stone family rescues Eden from Adrian's safe house, which Angelina eventually escapes to. After this, she returns home, where surprisingly she is welcomed back by her mother. As the first half of Season 4 comes to a conclusion, Angelina comes across the Omega Sapphire, which gives her supernatural powers of sorts. Using this stone, Angelina completely destroys the school she went to, as well as the surrounding areas. The second half of Season 4 sees an even more wicked side of Angelina. Being able to use the Omega Sapphire to pretty much manipulate callings, she comes up with a way to indirectly kill Fiona and possibly kill Captain Daly, ensuring that the death date will take place. Towards the end of Manifest, Angelina assembles a small group of estranged 828 passengers at the house of the Stone family, convincing them that she is not only their savior, but the savior of the entire world because of the sapphire that is now embedded in her right palm. Angelina's final moments have her telling Ben that she never intended to murder Grace, begging for his forgiveness, but also asking him to leave her because she doesn't want to live. And Ben carries Angelina onto the plane anyways, where she and the passengers who were part of her flock vaporize, turning into ash. At the end of Manifest, we're left with a ton of questions as to what kind of person Angelina could have been if even one thing was different. What if Pete survived? What if Angelina didn't kill Grace and kidnap Eden? What if Angelina just injured Grace, kidnapped Eden, then returned Eden? What if she didn't come across the Omega Sapphire? What would happen if Adrian never suggested that Eden was her guardian angel? We don't really have questions like these for most of the other passengers. Everything gets answered with all of them. But we do for Angelina because of her lack of any real ties to any other characters in Manifest, as well as how in the dark we are about her background. What we do know was that Angelina felt abandoned and rejected at every turn, no matter what kind of effort she put in, with most of her actions and motives being reactions to this abandonment and rejection. So Angelina goes through 3 phases during Manifest: the desperate to belong to the Stone family phase, the desperate for a guardian angel phase, and the seize power to get back at everyone phase. As soon as we meet her at the beginning of Season 3, we can see that Angelina is a very troubled person. In fact, we see Angelina attempting to cut herself when we first see her, showing that she struggles with suicidal ideation. An interesting aspect about Angelina that I kind of wanted to be at the crux of her character is that she doesn't start off evil. In fact, she seems to be aware that she might be responsible for the death date as well, as she tells Olive after Pete dies that she has only been a burden at best and dangerous at worst to everybody she has come across ever since Flight 828 landed. This gets Angelina to believe that she isn't good for anybody, which sets a pattern for her throughout most of Manifest. Angelina wants to be left alone so that the only person she hurts is herself whenever she does come to her senses, which is usually after her plans fail. This desire creates a paradox of sorts that Angelina struggles with for the rest of Season 3, going into Season 4. She wants to be left alone because she gets a hunch that she's going to hurt anybody she comes across, but is also desperate to be loved and appreciated. Angelina partially ignores this after she kidnaps Eden, believing that the youngest Stone can save her from her plight. After the Stone family recovers Eden from Adrian's safe house, however, Angelina tells Adrian to leave her. However, Angelina ignores this completely after discovering the Omega Sapphire, seeking power for vengeance and believing that she herself is an archangel. All things considered, Angelina doesn't really make any genuine connections with anyone throughout Manifest. Even when she gets married to Egan later in Season 4, this marriage doesn't feel organic in any sense of the word. The only person who Angelina does make a genuine connection with is Pete during the middle of Season 3, and even that is a stretch. Either way, it doesn't last too long anyways. Pete, Jace, and Corey coming back from the dead represented a second chance for all 3 of them, and Angelina saw Pete himself as a second chance for her to be happy, since she associated Pete with the picture of her as a kid and her innocence. Once Pete died, Angelina believed that she too lost her own second chance at purity And this is when she starts changing for the worse. Angelina wasn't a bad person before this. Angelina's motives are twofold after Pete dies until the end of season 3. She wants to do all she can to fit into the Stone family, as well as find someone who can save her from her own despair, which was Pete's role until he died. This is where Eden comes in. The second she holds Eden in her arms, Angelina believes that she has found her guardian angel. And because she is so desperate for said guardian, Angelina will do anything to be with Eden. Additionally, because she is so disillusioned by the concept of angelic beings, which was likely brought on by her upbringing, Angelina performs an experiment of sorts where she lights a candle and touches the flame, believing Eden can prevent her or anything else from being burned or set on fire. To me, this was her point of no return. The first few episodes of season 4 see Angelina go through the desperate to be saved by anyone phase more than ever. This is made explicitly clear after we see her make an attempt on her and Eden's lives by jumping off a bridge. However, Eden stops Angelina, referring to her as Mommy. This stops Angelina from taking both their lives. We also see Angelina act out this desperate to be saved by someone in her interactions with Adrian, an 828 passenger who also did a few bad things during the first couple seasons, but then turned over a new leaf. Late into season 3, Angelina looks to Adrian for advice and guidance, since she is now on her own after being removed from the Stones place. Another way we see Angelina act out this phase is through the smattering of 828 passengers who temporarily take her and Eden in. She acts overly polite towards them, but in an inorganic way that reveals how desperate she is for their help. Angelina goes through the acquire power to get back at those who hurt her phase right before Eden gets taken away from her. In fact, I'd argue that she transitions to this phase while she still has Eden. During a scene where Eden draws callings, she draws a calling that gives Ben a clue as to where she's being held. Angelina takes exception to this, and for the first time loses her temper in front of Eden when she is at Adrian's safe house. After this, and especially after Eden gets taken away from her, Angelina goes on a mad quest for power. Threatening to blow up Adrian's safe house with bombs made by another passenger, we see for the first time Angelina's desire for power and vengeance, combined with being desperate to keep Eden for herself. It is after Eden is taken from her where Angelina commits to not only seeking power, but getting back at anyone and everyone who she feels hurt her. Although this is nothing more than a theory of mine, I believe she convinces her parents to help her achieve this. Either way, Angelina's MO going into the rest of Season 4, Part 1, is to seek vengeance. This is made especially clear when her own mother captures her and Adrian. While she is able to cut herself loose, Angelina refuses to cut Adrian loose, accusing him of leading Ben and the Stone family to her. The seize power for vengeance phase is totally established when Angelina tracks Egan down and forcefully takes the sapphire from him, injuring him in the process. The power from the Omega Sapphire finally convinces Angelina that she never needed a guardian angel, since she now believes that she is an archangel herself. Using the sapphire to manipulate certain callings, Angelina does everything she can to make sure that not only does everything go her way, but also to gain power over others. We see this in her dealings with director Zimmer when she is taken to the detention center, and especially after Angelina escapes the detention center with Egan. Angelina also uses the Omega Sapphire as a way of establishing authority, as she uses it to convince a group of estranged 828 passengers that she is there to save them. Combining this with her thirst for vengeance, she moves these estranged passengers into the House of the Stones. It seems like Angelina is attempting to get back at anyone who has hurt her when she does what she does, especially here. Additionally, Angelina is convinced that she is a savior and she believes that the death date is necessary to bring in what Angelina calls the new world. Angelina's story arc concludes with a series of sobering events that tragically reinforce the fact that not only does she truly does cause harm to everybody who she comes in contact with, which she herself established back in season 3, but that everybody who she attempts to connect with will either leave her or die, which she also established in season 4. To me, the final scenes featuring Angelina, where she is confronted by Ben, reveals that she always had an idea that she was responsible for the death date, whether indirectly or directly. It might have been why she didn't want Ben to take her on the plane in the end. She may have had a hunch, or even a calling, that if she were to get on that plane, that the passengers might all turn to ash. While that remains unanswered, Angelina's knowledge of her being a burden on everybody she comes across, which goes all the way back to her first appearance, is just as relevant at the end of season 4. It's just that it wasn't nearly as explicit as it probably could and should have been. Angelina's descent into madness on Manifest shows us 3 things. First, it shows us that beliefs that are seen as pure and good, especially traditional monotheistic beliefs, can be perverted to be evil. Because Angelina's parents were religious fanatics, she ultimately became fanatical herself by association. Combine this with her role as an 8-to-8 passenger, as well as her constantly misreading and misunderstanding callings, or even completely ignoring callings, whichever you'd like to believe, and Angelina had everything she needed to go out of her way to hurt others for what she believed to be a good cause. The second thing it shows us is that relying on others too much for esteem can and will backfire on everyone involved, especially if you're jealous of others. Angelina's struggle to maintain relationships shows us what can happen if you have expectations for others that they may not be able to meet, relying for them for way more than what they can realistically provide. She develops these kinds of expectations for nearly everybody she comes across during the show, and sadly, Angelina gets hurt every time because of it. If Angelina didn't have these kinds of expectations, and especially if she wasn't obsessed about the concept of having a guardian angel, she likely would have been able to be a better person, since she didn't really have any evil desires before losing Pete, who she had far too much emotional investment in. Additionally, Angelina appears jealous of Olive, who she spends a lot of time with before she comes across Pete. After Pete dies, she almost begins impersonating Olive, which is a clear sign of jealousy, to me at least. The last thing we can take away from Angelina's descent in Manifest is the temptation to seek power when you believe that everything has been taken from you, thinking that it will solve your problems and give you strength. While that might appear to work well for a season, the secondary effects of this soon kick in and you're left in an even worse position. Although I haven't really cared for the guy until recently, wrestling performer Phil CM Punk Brooks said it best during a promo segment against Maxwell Jacob Friedman, or MJF, during one of his opponents during his All Elite Wrestling run. In this segment, Punk tells MJF that his disdain for everything around him and his quest for power will make him feel powerful and keep him warm, but eventually it'll burn him up. Well, this pretty much happens to Angelina as soon as she comes across the Omega Sapphire. She gains a lot of power from it, is able to manipulate callings, but she becomes addicted to it to the point where she also develops unreasonable expectations for the Omega Sapphire itself, eventually relying on it to win others over. While Angelina is able to create her flock from this, you can tell that very few members of the flock actually want to be around her. To sum everything up, Angelina Meyer's story arc in Manifest is nothing if not tragic, and it documents the descent of someone whose life was nothing if not unremarkable before the events surrounding 828. It shows us how those who are incredibly troubled can develop unrealistic expectations of others out of emotional pain. Shows us how tempting it can be to use fanatical religious beliefs to justify evil deeds. It shows us what can happen when you rely on seeking power and authority over others instead of attempting to empower yourself. And finally, Angelina's arc shows us what can happen when you buy into a victim complex so much that you use it to justify evil deeds, which, sadly, is getting more and more commonplace nowadays. I think I'm so fascinated by Angelina because, disturbingly enough, I relate to her more than I'd ever care to admit. Not only did I witness the death of someone important to me after both myself and him did everything right, just like Angelina did when Pete died, I also developed a similar victim complex as Angelina did during my younger years, and it caused me to do things that I regretted. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie here. Angelina is one of the most relatable villains that I've come across in a long time. I'm not afraid to say that. When she felt hurt, I felt hurt. When she broke down after Pete died, I actually called one of my best friends and told her that I loved her because of how hard that hit. When she said that nothing but bad things happen around her, I remember actually pausing and saying to myself, wow, I used to say shit just like that. Damn. And I actually found myself rooting for Angelina to turn over a new leaf and do the right thing and let go of all the resentment that she was feeling throughout season 4. But I was disappointed when she couldn't do it. And honestly, I had to actually stop watching for a bit when I saw Angelina attempt to cut herself when we first meet her and when she attempts to take her and Eden's life, because I too have made attempts on my own life in the same kind of ways. So that triggered me. No, I didn't have a kid with me, but you get the idea. When Angelina turned to ash on the plane, I thought only one thing. What a waste. Because damn, how uplifting would it have been if Angelina did the right thing, survived, and went on to lead a much happier life going into the reset timeline or whatever in the ending of Manifest. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind seeing that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just a sucker for seeing deeply troubled characters get a better ending. Who knows? So while it's incredibly easy to dislike Angelina for a litany of reasons, all of which are valid, I implore you to look past the surface. Put any of the other passengers in her shoes, and what would they have done? What are anyone's options when their mental health is that compromised and they have literally no one to turn to? You tell me. It is for these reasons that I believe Angelina Meyer should be seen in an era of sympathetic contempt, instead of just saying that she's insufferable or annoying. The first character that comes to mind is Sero the Manslayer from Dragon Quest IV. Just like Sero is more committed than ever to eliminate all humanity after Rosa is killed, Angelina also loses her mind in a similar way after Pete dies. Now, Angelina isn't like Sero, who pretty much tells Rosa that he wants to straight up destroy all of mankind from jump, but still, similar concept. And if you know about the lore of Dragon Quest IV, you'll also know that Sero isn't totally responsible for his actions, since he only feels compelled to do what he does after acquiring the golden bracelet. I'd like to think that this is similar to Angelina and the Omega Sapphire, since the Sapphire represents the final transformation of sorts for Angelina. Additionally, something I'd like to add here is that Saro, even though he doesn't like humans, he's incredibly fond of other beings, such as elves and other animals and everything. I think it would have been cool if Angelina had a similar fondness, like maybe for animals or something. But who knows? Either way, there's good similarities there. Angelina may as well be a ripoff of my favorite wrestler, Raven, because the two are eerily similar to what they do and represent. And by the way, I'm talking about Raven in 1995 to 1997 ECW. Only difference here is that Raven was even more diabolical and was way more charismatic. But let's break down this comparison. Raven took a child and attempted to raise it as his own. So did Angelina. Raven sees himself as a martyr for society's dysfunction. Angelina sees herself as a martyr for the 828 passengers' dysfunction. Raven had a flock. Angelina had a flock. I could go on, but I think you get the point. Delta and Wegriff from Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions also remind me of Angelina in that both believe that seeking power can solve their problems, but it winds up either killing them, which is what happens to Wegriff, or it winds up putting them in positions where they still feel lost, which is what happens to Delta. I mean, check out what Delta says during these few scenes here. He's sick of being used, and he wants to be the one using. Angelina definitely goes through this kind of thing for sure. I mean, look what she says to Cal during one of the callings on the plane. She doesn't care about being redeemed. She now wants to be the one doing redeeming. Look what happens to Wegriff. Here is someone who has nowhere to turn. His plot to eliminate all noble knights so that the commoners can rule totally crushed. As soon as he gets a hold of one of the Zodiac stones and turns into Belios, none of that matters anymore. He has power, he likes it, and he wants vengeance. And what happens to Angelina once she gets the Omega Sapphire? She has power, she likes it, and she uses it to exact revenge. Tori Nichols from Cobra Kai kind of reminds me of Angelina. Both are very troubled souls. Both have a ton of resentment, with said resentment forming most of their motives. Both are also incredibly impressionable and not emotionally mature either. Only difference is that Tori is able to begin doing the right thing and turn over a new leaf thanks to individuals who she can confide in, many of whom are very unsuspecting, such as Daniel LaRusso's wife. But other than that, both of these characters have totally bought into the philosophy that vengeance is justice. On that note, I'd argue that the actress who plays Tori would be way better as Angelina, especially going into season 4. But that's just some random opinion I have. Speaking of the philosophy that vengeance is justice, the Punisher is a superhero who acts almost exclusively on vengeance. This constantly puts Frank Castle in positions where he constantly blurs the line between good and evil and doesn't care. As Season 3 of Manifest ends, Angelina also operates almost exclusively on vengeance, just like Frank Castle does. The only difference here is that she sees doing the right thing as a direct interference from her goals, where it usually goes either way with the Punisher. And you know what? Let's put Bartleby from Dogma in here too, just for posterity. Future episode coming on Bartleby from Dogma, by the way. I mean, I know Dogma isn't really supposed to be taken seriously, but Bartleby and Angelina have very, very similar motivations. Both have a victim complex that turns into a god complex, and both feel hurt and betrayed by those around them. Both want to solve this with divine justice. I mean, Bartleby isn't human, and Angelina is, but still, there are similarities between the two for sure. So why not put them in there? And if you haven't watched Dogma, you should. It's easily one of Kevin Smith's best movies. And I am definitely going to be doing an Understanding Evil on Bartleby full show. Okay, this is going to be a super hot take, and I'm going to be talking a lot here, so let me. Okay. Super hot take here, but my answer to this is yes, I do. Angelina can be improved in a bunch of ways. A bunch. And if you want to read more about this, I wrote in my blog about it like crazy. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. But here's why. Okay. First, I understand what was trying to be accomplished with Angelina. I really do. And while I did feel bad for her during most of the show, even when she was at her worst, that was all I felt. Like I said, when she turned into Ash at the end of the show, I just said what a waste, as I saw a character with tons of potential get for a way better arc get predictably zapped out of existence. Like, if you didn't think she was going to turn into Ash, then, like, come on. honestly, to me, that really sucks. Additionally, the overall execution of Angelina as a character, especially as the villain role in this show, it didn't really impress me. The Major, to me, was a much more convincing villain. So was Autumn, who I just really couldn't stand. Egan was also just as bad in a lot of ways. And Director Zimmer was a total asshole who I despised even more than I was supposed to despise Angelina. Yeah, it's the same with her parents. In fact, I hated Angelina's parents the most out of everybody in Manifest. So, and for the right reasons, by the way. So given that I think there were worse people in Manifest, I also think Angelina deserves better within the narrative of the show. She had a lot of potential, and it just seems like her character was written into a corner, especially during Season 4. Angelina also isn't too convincing as a villain because of how damn troubled she is. Now I know, right? Hurt people definitely hurt people, right? This is a trope that works well if executed properly. I mean, that's exactly how things were with Eileen Wuornos, the subject of the 2003 film Monster. Future episode on that, by the way, for sure. Difference here is that Angelina doesn't have the lick of the life experience that Eileen does. And we know all about Eileen in Monster. But here, Angelina doesn't really know any better. Eileen did know better. She did all the stuff that she did worse than Angelina, irrespective of any callings or Omega Sapphires or whatever. Wasn't even religious. So Eileen did know better. She knew what she was doing and didn't care. Which is why she fits the hurt people trope very well. But Angelina was written such that she didn't have the same kind of life experience as Eileen. Not to mention she wasn't nearly as old as Eileen Wuornos. So this just made no sense to me. And nothing really gets done with Angelina's pain either. It isn't nearly as significant to the narrative as it should have been. She just kind of acts out a bit and kind of sheepishly attempts to get back at anyone who she thinks did her wrong without much conviction. Then just goes away at the end. And I'm sorry. It was underwhelming, and it just left me wanting way more. Now here, let me stop and clarify something real fast. If Angelina wasn't super troubled, if she was maybe a little older, like Ben's age, if she knew that she was doing was wrong, and then clearly doubled down on it, instead of it being a series of misunderstandings that just kind of snowballed, then Angelina wouldn't deserve any better, because she'd be disliked for way better reasons. Reasons that are actually relevant to her character, reasons that are more than just than just shallow, oh, she's annoying, and other stuff like that. That's like I said, the Angelina we saw in Manifest was not like that. Just not even close. She was annoying, had repetitive and shallow dialogue, and was surrounded by plot armor, which left me wanting way more, even for a villain. Additionally, villains who are as central to a story as Angelina is, they can't just be annoying. They either need to be entertaining and charismatic to where you enjoy seeing them work in some way, like as a guilty pleasure kind of deal, or you need to be afraid of what they're going to be doing next, or you can feel the pain in their actions, as if they're like being evil because they feel like they have no other option. Now, if Angelina was like a lackey for a main villain, she'd be okay. Like if Manifest was directed by Adam Sandler, and like she was that hokey, and you knew it to be that hokey, and you were cool with that, okay, she'd be all right. Possibly, maybe, who knows? In those cases, she could be nothing but annoying and get away with it because you're supposed to dislike how annoying they are. But they got to be entertaining too, right? By the way, future Understanding Evil on Shooter McGavin, for sure. That's why I brought up Sandler. So in order to truly dislike a villain, you also have to like their counterpoint parts to the point where it actually affects you when the villain does something to them. This doesn't really happen in Manifest. To me, at least. Maybe to others it does, and that you're cool with that, that's great. But not to me. The people who Angelina hurts, to me, I wasn't sold on being affected by it. They weren't too likable at all. I didn't really care for any of them. Save for Sanvi and Zeke. And that's a problem, because Angelina doesn't really do anything to Sanvi or Zeke. I didn't really care after Angelina stabbed Grace and kidnapped Eden. Because the Stone family in and of itself left a lot to be desired. Angelina was, overprotective mom, very predictable and one-dimensional. Ben wound up being just as self-righteous as Angelina was at times. Cal was just kind of there despite being, the Messiah dude, which is kind of dumb. The stuff Angelina and Olive go through is really shallow high school nonsense that I just kind of shrugged at. So I didn't like the Stone family enough to get mad at Angelina for doing what she did to them at all. Again, it's just my perspective. Okay, so Angelina becomes evil because what? A smattering of misunderstandings that created a snowball effect which took place directly after she watched Pete die in front of her very eyes. After she and him followed Collins. And properly, too, might I add. So this is pretty much what sets her off, because if Pete didn't die, Angelina wouldn't seek out Eden, and then all of a sudden we wouldn't have the Archangel Guardian Angel fetish that she develops for Eden, and other stuff like that. So why should I dislike Angelina for this? I just kind of feel confused and a little bit bad for her. At some points, I even found myself saying, well, fuck me, wouldn't any other passenger do the exact same? Like, let's swap Angelina for Ben. Let's do this. Let's say it was Ben and Grace who had to follow Collins in order to avoid Grace's death date, and despite doing that perfectly to the T, Grace dies in front of Ben's eyes. And let's say it was Angelina who had the kid who Ben thought he was connected to. Let's say Ben developed an angel fetish for Angelina's kid, or even something different than that. Who knows? Who's to say that Ben wouldn't do the exact same as Angelina? I'd argue he may have done worse, given how he acts throughout the show. So that's another reason why I couldn't really get behind Angelina being the villain of Manifest. There isn't any real exclusivity to her actions. She could have been swapped out for anyone else, really. Someone like Autumn, who I mentioned earlier. In fact, I kind of pushed for this, if you read my blog, which see it in the description. So not only would we have a much more compelling and dangerous villain, but it would actually make more sense if Angelina was swapped out for Autumn. I mean that too, because Autumn had just as much beef with the Stone family, knows where they are and how to get to them because she watched over Cal at one point. Autumn doesn't have access to her own kid, so she has way more real incentive to kidnap Eden than Angelina did. Didn't need the Guardian Angel fetish to do that. Most importantly, Autumn knows the difference between right and wrong more than Angelina because not only is Autumn older than Angelina, Autumn also was a career criminal before getting on Flight 828. So see, I created exclusive actions done out of pure spite based on a prior history of the protagonists. None of those three fit Angelina's profile, ever. It's just, I developed a guardian angel fetish for the youngest child in the Stone family. Now I need to kidnap her so she can save me from myself. It has potential, but it wasn't executed right. And also, this one I could barely wrap my head around, because what the hell? Where's the damn backstory with this girl? I'm serious. We don't know anything about her. We know next to nothing. What? We get quality exposition and backstory for the other main characters in Manifest, but not the big villain who for a season and a half? What? Why? What are we just supposed to just accept that she has no real backstory? I'm sorry, but Angelina's parents being religious nuts and that little picture of her at the snow cone place where Pete's in the background, that's not enough. For her, it's not enough. We need more, especially given how central she is to season 4 of Manifest. Here, let me give this some context. Okay, imagine if Terry Silver from Karate Kid / Cobra Kai was just some dude who was really good at martial arts, but had zero connections to Kreese or the Cobra Kai dojo. How would that change his role in the Karate Kid / Cobra Kai universe, given that he would still be the main villain for Cobra Kai from season 4 on in Cobra Kai? How would we be convinced? We wouldn't. Just be some dude who took over. Oh yeah, future episode on Terry Silver. By the way, this is what I mean. So yeah, okay. If Angelina was just some regular ass 828 passenger who didn't have a central role in Manifest, just had like if we never heard from her again after recovering Eden, okay, be all right. And if the Major came back and then the Major would be the villain again, okay, that'd be cool. But no, that wasn't the case at all. We needed more backstory here. I'm sorry, we just had to. No, here are the blanks that I needed to fill, and I couldn't fill them. What kind of life was Angelina actually going back to after Flight 828? Why was she traveling to Jamaica in the first place? When exactly did her parents stop being normal and start being fanatical? What exactly does she want at her core? What are her motives for life? What does she want to do with her life? We know this for everyone else, or for most others. There's no exposition here. If for a character like Angelina on a show like Manifest, it's kind of necessary. Like I said, we pretty much know this for the majority of the characters we come across. Why the hell not the main freaking villain? So Angelina is an underdeveloped character because of this, and that's why she deserved better. Because the potential was there. Boy, was it ever there. But fuck me, was the execution poor. I'm sorry. The whole character shrouded in mystery trope does not work here because most of season 4 is centered around Angelina. When a show is centered around a character like that, on a show like this, you need to know at least a few things about them, because that's what gets you hooked. We should have gotten that, could have gotten that, but didn't get that. What was the result? An underwhelming villain and an underwhelming character with an arc that makes zero sense and isn't one iota organic. Okay, so second to last thing here. Been a long section, sorry. So when it comes to evil deeds, I believe that the why is every bit as important as the what, if not more. And the why behind Angelina's evil deeds they're pretty shallow. And to be honest, boy, mind-numbingly predictable. Again, this could be okay for a sidekick for a main villain, maybe for a Sandler movie villain, but not for a main character, not for a main villain of this caliber with this kind of stuff that goes on. No, doesn't do it. Okay, now we're gonna get to what really made what really made all my fluids boil about Angelina. The guardian angel slash archangel fetish. Okay. The idea was promising. The execution, no. Okay? No. Horrible. Look, this girl goes from being incredibly distraught from losing Pete to believing that Eden can save her from herself to believing that she is an archangel without any real exposition at all. Just happens because of callings. Maybe. Nothing else. Nothing else at all. Just callings. If we can even call them that. Which she misreads for some dumb reason. Which we also never get a real explanation for, by the way. What, other villains use callings for personal gain and stuff and like mess with them and get too curious with them and you see the punishment but not for Angelina? Well, I don't understand. I do not understand that as I move my camera, sorry. I'm serious. Check it out for yourself. Once season 3 ends, it's pedal to the metal with no real exposition. And I just do not like that. It's just, here's the villain doing villain stuff because she thinks she's performing divine justice because, say it with me, callings. Kind of. Enjoy. And to me, that's not good storytelling. For a villain who I guess we're supposed to maybe have sympathy for, but dislike at the same time. Not really, but I don't know. It's like I said, I felt too bad for Angelina to dislike her completely, but I disliked her too much to feel bad for her completely. So I just didn't want to see her again. I was like, okay, like when is this girl gonna like be swapped out for a different villain? That's what I was waiting for. Again, that's disliking a villain for the wrong reason. Okay, so I split Manifest into 2 different shows. There is Manifest when the Major was still alive, and Manifest after the Major was killed and Angelina is introduced. So I don't like when shows do this, especially when they have a villain as good as the Major was. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Worked pretty well in The Walking Dead when he had a recurring villains, namely Negan, whatever his name is. That was pretty cool, but doesn't work here. It just does not. Okay, now, the final reason why Angelina deserves better, which I kind of touched on a few seconds ago. There was someone who was a worse person, more convincing, and who could and should have been a persistent villain throughout all of Manifest. The Major. Because the Major's role still had a lot to offer going into Season 3. Especially after Angelina was introduced. To me, the Major was all we needed. Alright, so here is why the Major was a better villain. Considering both her and Angelina's backgrounds, what both are capable of on any given day, without assistance from callings or Omega Sapphire Stones or divine consciousness and stuff, the Major was leaps and bounds worse than Angelina could ever be. Do you want some more? Okay, let's get some more. Here's some more stuff that makes the Major a better villain. Next to unlimited resources, check. Sees the passengers as nothing but potential weapons, thereby making the passengers afraid of the Major. Check. Creates a stacked deck against the passengers because of her position of power. Check. Passengers have an incentive to join the Major in order to clear their names. Check. Here's the most important one. One that doesn't apply to Angelina, because she does care. But most importantly, doesn't know about the death date, and probably wouldn't care even if she did know about it. Check. That's what the Major was bringing, ever since we saw her. And she let you know it too, and in the best kind of way, being subtle. Tell me, how the hell does Angelina even compare, even after getting the Omega Sapphire? No, seriously, tell me why they thought it was a good idea to swap someone like that for a fellow passenger who was literally nobody until a bunch of possibly misread callings transformed her into some weird sorceress. I said, you tell me, because I'm still lost on that. As I kill a spider on my wall. Oh yeah, all the stuff about the Major, that's true of Director Zimmer, by the way. Both Zimmer and the Major were abusing their power for evil deeds way before Angelina was. So here, give the Omega Sapphire to either one, and you'd have a real final boss. A true villain that we'd have no choice but to either fear or dislike. Like we get the Shinnok of Manifest, for all you Mortal Kombat fans out there. Oh, by the way, future understanding evil on some of the villains of Mortal Kombat. Shao Kahn, Shinnok, Shang Tsung, all those. And all things considered, let's get real here. Angelina needed to go to quite a few lengths to do all the evil things she did. Like, this tends to get lost on viewers, but Angelina's actions were pretty much contingent on her being an A2A passenger. In fact, this is especially the case with her because we literally know nothing about her other than she was on Flight 828. Like, I'm serious. You take that role title label away from Angelina, and what do you have? You tell me. Okay, the same could be said about most of the other A2A passengers, but it's even more relevant with Angelina because we're supposed to see her as the villain. But when have we ever seen a villain who is tied to so many contingencies? One or two, sure, because it allows you to see them being resourceful and working around them, but we don't really see Angelina do that. Everyone just acts stupid so she gets what she wants. It's dumb. That's why, to me, they should have just kept the Major as the main villain of Manifest. Or they could have replaced her with Zimmer if they still wanted to go through with killing the Major. These two individuals were doing horrible things way before Angelina came into the picture and were capable of doing everything Angelina did and even more. Not only that, they'd be able to get away with it and even be celebrated for it, and organically, and not forcibly creating the necessary air of fear and dread that we saw during the last season or so of Manifest. The Major, Zimmer, they would have executed this really well. But not Angelina, who would probably be a good side character for either one. No, I'm serious. The biggest mistake this show made was swapping the Major with Angelina as the lead villain. It didn't work. It didn't vibe well with what the show was supposed to be. I disliked Angelina for the wrong reasons. I liked what the Major was doing for the right reasons. So, yeah. And to me, Manifest is a show where you're supposed to fear the villain. Not dislike them, but also kind of feel sorry for them. And almost be annoyed by them all the time for nothing but shallow but fair reasons. If anything, also, it would have been more captivating for Angelina to be like an anti-hero or something. Where her and the passengers form some kind of uncomfortable alliance because of how much worse Zimmer or the Major were compared to her or something, or whatever. And you know what? This could have been done with Angelina without totally compromising her role. Could have brought much needed closure to her character. Closure that we definitely needed, given what she went through during the show. Okay, using a different webcam, just going off the cuff here, but I'd like to thank you for watching. Okay, my next Understanding Evil is going to be way shorter, on a way better character. And that character is Bodhi from Point Break, one of my favorites of all time. Cannot wait to do that video. Don't know when I'm going to be able to do it, but we'll see. So yeah, keep that in mind. If you want to read about me rewriting Angelina's story arc and manifest, I have linked in the description to my blog. Stuff I'm writing about it. I'm actually going to do a video about it too. And that's going to be cool to do. That one I'm just going to do completely off the cuff like this. I'll probably have like some pictures in the, I'll do like a thing where my webcam is in the corner and put some pictures in there on the main screen. Something like that. There's going to be like a couple short versions and then one super duper long version that I just went crazy with. Additionally, Angelina is kind of a muse. I hate saying that. But she's my muse for a sequel to Manifest that I created. So because she left a million blanks about her past and about whatever the hell she was doing with her life before 828, I said to myself, I'm going to go build some worlds around that, you know? So I did. And I'd like to announce right now, this is part of my National Novel Writing Month project for this year, and the word count for it is going to probably be the longest of all the participants, at over 300,000 words. It is my sequel to Manifest that I've entitled Pillars, with the two L's being ones in reference to the 11 missing passengers. So if you want to learn more about that, I have created a Discord for it, which also will eventually double as my personal Discord channel for this YouTube channel. Maybe. Don't know. Might use a different Discord. We'll see. So if you're interested in that, you totally should be. Because I like writing about it. It's pretty fun. Go ahead and join that. Even if you want to say, hey man, you're an idiot for like thinking you can make Angelina okay again. Yeah, I'll certainly take that. That's fine. It's okay. It's alright. It's just that, let me finish off real fast here by saying this. Angelina's arc and Manifest, it put a bad taste in my mouth. I'm kind of over characters who have like really troubled existences and then they go on to do really bad things. I don't really think we need that as a fictional narrative the way our society and culture is right now. I really don't think it's necessary. I think the whole troubled character goes on to be, really emotionally healthy and stuff like that. Does that have Hallmark vibes? Absolutely. But look at the show itself of Manifest. How many Hallmark moments do we have? We have like 5 Hallmark moments in like every fucking episode. What's the harm in having one more walking Hallmark moment in Angelina recovering and being a better person and shit? What? Come on. It was going to be just as predictable anyways. So, that's why she's my muse. That's why I made a whole sequel about people from her past trying to find her and stuff. And they get callings too, which is really cool. That's going to be awesome. Can't wait for it. I've been writing about it all for a few months now. So, yeah. So, Discord for that, like I said in the description. My blogs too. You can read more about that if you want. And I will be doing very soon rewriting Evil Angelina Meyer from Manifest. And that's going to be a long video that I might actually do live. I might actually do that live on my Twitch channel or here, just as like a just chatting. And I can link the Google Doc for it in the description, in the chat, so you can read it if you want. Give yourself some good reading material. Anyways, thank you for watching / listening, and I will see you in the next stream or video. Take care.